guys, welcome to the Berean Perspective. In just a minute, I'm going to be doing a review of Reverend Anthony Rogers debating with Shabir Ally, Dr. Shabir Ally, but it's also going to be Daniel Wallace, Dr. Daniel Wallace, rebutting Shabir Ally. Let's play the clip. I'm going to play the full clip. It is from Anthony Rogers. I'm a friend of his. I'm going to play this clip. Then I'm going to play a couple of clips from Shabir and Anthony, and then give a review. So I want to give you the whole context together. Check this out.
Shabir Ally, he should know better than that.
He didn't call God, Jesus God in John chapter 1, verse 1. He was saying that Jesus is the Logos and the Logos was with God. And this Logos had a divine quality. And this is how Wallace, in his grammar and exegesis of the New Testament, has explicated it. He's not saying, John is not saying that Jesus was God in terms of identity, but he was saying that Jesus has a God quality. And hence, the best way of translating that would be to say that Jesus was the Logos was divine, and that has been translated by some others in that way, even though Wallace himself did not translate it that way. So no, John's gospel is not saying explicitly that Jesus is God. You will not find a simple, clear, declarative statement of this type in any undisputed text in the New Testament saying that Jesus is God.
It says, in the beginning was the Word, and arche ein halagos, kai halagos ein pros chondrion, kai theos, and God, kai theos ein halagos, and God was the Word was God, in English syntax. And he quoted Wallace, who's a Greek grammarian, by the way. He quoted Wallace saying it doesn't really mean that he's God. It's just saying that he has a divine quality. He's kind of God-like in the sense that he's very exalted. Here's what Daniel Wallace says in his Greek grammar beyond the basics, page 269. John 1:1 stresses that although the person of Christ is not the person of the Father, their essence is identical. The construction the evangelist chose to express this idea was the most concise way he could have stated that the Word was God and yet was not the person of the Father. That's Dan Wallace. That's what Greek grammarians say. The word is a pre-verbal predicate nominative. In fact, it's moved to the emphatic position. It's stating that Jesus is God in the most emphatic way you could possibly ask him to do so.
Shabir Ally says that you admit that John 1:1, where the word is called God, is qualitative, so that it should be divine, but that he is not God in an absolute sense. Dr. Wallace, is this properly representing you?
You know, I'm shocked that Shabir Ally would say that, because doesn't he have a bachelor's degree in biblical studies?
Yep.
He's supposed to be an Islamic exegete. In other words, he's supposed to know how to understand the words that somebody writes and their context. And I spend 15 pages in my Greek grammar talking about what's called Caldwell's rule and its relevance for John 1:1 in my grammar that's about 850 pages long. And he should know better than to say those things. He's half right. I do say that it is qualitative, and that means that it should be translated perhaps as divine. Now, frankly, if I say it's translated divine, that in no way is suggesting that Jesus is less than full deity. In fact, what it does is it says he's different from the Father. That's what that qualitative force means. The word order here in Greek is such that it affirms Trinitarian theology, that the Father and the Son have exactly the same essence, but they are not the same person. If the order had been the Word was the God, where you actually have the article the in front of God, that would be Sabellianism. That is, the Word is the same as the Father.
Yep.
But if you have, what you actually have in Greek is theos, God, ein, was, hologos, the word. But Greek grammar requires the noun with the article to be the subject, so it should be translated, the word was God. But God, the predicate nominative, is thrown forward in the sentence for emphasis. If it were to come after the verb, then that would be Arianism, as Luther says. If it came after the verb, it would mean the word was a God. What John writes is against Arianism and against Sabellianism. And what I like to say is that what John wrote here in 4 words is the most concise way he could possibly have written, that Jesus Christ is essentially the same as the Father in his being, but not identical in his person. It's a beautiful statement. And to say that he is any less than full deity is that's a rather improper and biased reading of what I've written.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was divine, which would be the best way of translating it. But Daniel Wallace, an expert on translation, says we won't use it that way, though Moffatt gave it that rendering, because nowadays people think of divine as meaning many things. Many things can be divine. Angels can be divine, and so on. And of course, we might add that somebody may eat a chocolate cake and say that this is divine. So because of the ambiguity of the term, he shies away from it. But he emphasizes that the statement there is a qualitative statement. Jesus has this kind of divine quality, not that he is God.
And to say that he is any less than full deity is that's a rather improper and biased reading of what I've written. So Shabir Ally, he should know better than that.
So what's interesting here is I wanted to play this full clip so you could see it and give it its proper due justice, because this is a clip that I'll have the link directly to, if you haven't already seen it, to Anthony Rogers' YouTube channel. And what's interesting about this is because Shabir has debated Anthony numerous times, and also recently apparently debated Matt Slick, who is from carm.org, an apologist for many years as well. And he's repeating the same deception, the same lie. And this is fascinating, is because you keep on using the same rhetoric over and over as if it's supposed to make it true, when it's not. And so what I'm now do is I'm going to go back to that debate, play with what Shabir played, and then I'm also going to play what Anthony played in that, or said in those debates. And then I'm going to give a response. I'm also going to give a response to what Shabir was also saying about the word divine, in reference also to Daniel Wallace, in particular to the Moffatt translation, James Moffatt, because I have in my possession James Moffatt, and I want to look at what John 1:1 and John chapter 1 talks about with the word divine, and if there's anything that Shabir has to stand on, which really he does not.
He says that I refer to John 1:1. Actually, not directly. I was quoting John chapter 1, verse number 2. Hutos in arche proston theos. He was proston theon. This is the one who was in the beginning with God. If John had just finished calling Jesus God in John chapter 1, verse 1, why would he now say this is the one who was with God? No, he didn't call Jesus God in John chapter 1, verse 1. He was saying that Jesus is the Logos, and the Logos was with God, and this Logos had a divine quality. And this is how Wallace, in his grammar and exegesis of the New Testament, has explicated it. He's not saying, John is not saying that Jesus was God in terms of identity, but he was saying that Jesus has a God quality. And hence, the best way of translating that would be to say that Jesus was the Logos was divine, and that has been translated by some others in that way, even though Wallace himself did not translate it that way. So no, John's gospel is not saying explicitly that Jesus is God. You will not find a simple, clear, declarative statement of this type in any undisputed text in the New Testament saying that Jesus is God. You will find things like he is the image of God in Hebrews. But image of God is not exactly God. This is like, if my image is appearing on your screens, but that's not me. I am sitting behind my computer, but you're seeing my image. So if Jesus is the image of God, that does not mean that he is God. He is in some way, for the author of Hebrews, who should not be presumed to be Paul. For some, in some way, the author thinks that Jesus is a reflection of God, but he doesn't say that Jesus is God himself.
Moreover, Shabir, again, he says he wasn't quoting, he says John doesn't declare that Jesus is God. He was quoting verse 2 where he says this one was in the beginning with God. My whole point was that he glossed over. He says John couldn't be saying Jesus is God because verse 2 says he was with God. But verse 1 says that too, while also saying that he is God. It says, in the beginning was the Word, and arche ein halagos, kai halagos ein pros ton theon, kai theos, and God, kai theos ein halagos, and God was the Word. The Word was God in English syntax. And he quoted Wallace, who's a Greek grammarian, by the way. He quoted Wallace saying it doesn't really mean that he's God. It's just saying that he has a divine quality. He's kind of God-like in the sense that he's very exalted. Here's what Daniel Wallace says in his Greek Grammar Beyond the Basics, page 269. John 1:1 stresses that although the person of Christ is not the person of the Father, their essence is identical. The construction the evangelist chose to express this idea was the most concise way he could have stated that the Word was God and yet was not the person of the Father. That's Dan Wallace. That's what Greek grammarians say. The word is a preverbal predicate nominative. In fact, it's moved to the emphatic position. It's stating that Jesus is God in the most emphatic way you could possibly ask him to do so. And he does it again in verse 18. Shabir says, again, it's a subordinationist verse because it says monogenes theos, according to at least the critical text, because that means only begotten God. Well, that's not how even Wallace would interpret that. Wallace would understand that to mean God, the one and only. The word monogenes pointing to his uniqueness, not to anything, even his begetting. So again, Wallace wouldn't agree with that. John 20:28, the word Jesus is referred to as ha theos. He even uses the article, right? Akurios mu kai ha theos mu, my Lord and my God, referring to Jesus. Thomas said to him, my Lord and my God.
So you see the two sides. You saw the clip that Anthony provides from their debate, even exposing Shabir Ally with continually misrepresenting John 1 and Dan Wallace. And then apparently recently with a debate that he had with Matt Slick, again, regurgitating the same deception about John 1 and using wrong information. So this is important. Even Dan Wallace is now coming out and rebuking, rebutting, and debunking Shabir Ally for misrepresenting him. Now, what's interesting about both these clips, as I played both now, just what was going on in their debate, it's fascinating because Shabir Ally states a lot of wrong information pertaining to the Gospel of John, that there's no emphatic or declarative statements that Jesus is in fact God. He even then references Hebrews chapter 1, verse 3, talking about that he is the image of God, right? He's the image of. Well, it's actually, it is hypostasias correctar. He is the exact image, the impress image. He is the exact representation of God in the flesh. He was the embodiment of God come in the flesh. So he is not just a mirror or an image. He is the image. He is the very thing. To be an image means to reflect fully in embodiment. Colossians 2:9 says, for in him the deity was in the flesh. Over and over and over, you see throughout Paul's epistles, Peter's epistles, whoever the author of Hebrews is, Shabir is right. It is not good to assume it's automatically Paul who wrote Hebrews, whoever it was. Still, even in Hebrews chapter 1, when you keep on going, verse 6 says that let all the angels of God worship him. And verse 8, the one speaking in the context is the Father, and the Father calls the Son God. In Hebrews 1:10, 11, and 12, the Father again speaking of the Son, which is a direct reference to the Old Testament, Psalm 102, verses 25 and 26, where the Father calls the Son Yahweh. So yeah, Hebrews chapter 1 is emphatically clear. And as rightly so, as Anthony was pointing out with John 20:28, when Thomas is saying, my Lord and my God, he's calling him Theos, Kyrios, the God and the Lord. And there are numerous places throughout. The whole point of the Gospel of John is to point to the deity of Jesus Christ. When you read, remember I was saying a second ago, Moffatt, right? I have here Moffatt, right? Moffatt in John chapter 1, let me just give you a little bit here of John chapter 1. So it may have the word divine, and rightly so. That word theos can have the meaning of divine. There's no doubt. It doesn't take away from the context. Now, when Moffatt wrote his translation, this wasn't, he even openly said he was trying to express an English translation that would reflect the English language so the people could understand, right? So he's not declared that his translation is the end all. But check this out. Even if John 1:1, in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was divine, let the context define what divine means. Again, Moffatt translation here. Let me read it to you in verse 1. John 1:1. The Logos existed in the very beginning. The Logos was with God, and the Logos was divine. There's no and there. The Logos was divine. Now look at verse 2 and 3. He, notice the word he, autos, he was with God in the very beginning. Through him, all existence came into being. Through him, who's that? The Word, and the Word is spoken of as Jesus. Even Shabir will acknowledge that this word is in reference to Jesus when you read the context of John chapter 1. So through him, who? Jesus, all existence came into being. No existence came into being apart from him. That therefore shows Jesus is not created. That debunks Jehovah's Witnesses. That debunks Unitarianism. This also debunks Sabellianism, as Dan Wallace talks about earlier with John 1:1, that there is no in regards to our definite article at the end of John 1:1, where it talks about the God was the Word, or the Word was the God. That would be modalism, which is a heresy as well. It was showing a distinction between the Father and the Son. So you see these verses right away are rebuking Unitarianism, Jehovah-Arianism, Sabellianism, things that we have today, oneness, Islam, Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormonism, all these things. John, the prologue of John 1 refutes all false teachings, all false cults and religions. It is amazing the beauty, as even what Dan Wallace said earlier, the beauty of what John teaches here. Look at it. Let's just keep reading. In him life lays. This life was the light of men, for men. The darkness, the light shone, but the darkness did not master it. A man appeared sent by God whose name was John, talking about John the Baptist. He came for the purpose of witnessing, to bear testimony to the light, so that all men might believe by means of him. He was not the light. It was to bear the witness that the light that was appeared, the real light, verse 9, which enlightens every man, was coming into the world. Jesus was coming into the world. This whole thing is talking about Jesus' pre-existence. He was alive in existence prior to his incarnation of taking on the flesh. This, again, would debunk all Islamic theology or beliefs. Verse 10, he, meaning Jesus, entered the world which existed through him. Again, creation. Verse 3, even Colossians 1:16 and 17, Hebrews 1:2 and 3, and many other places define and clearly show that the whole New Testament points to the deity of Jesus Christ and his pre-existence prior to taking on the flesh, that he was with the Father. He entered the world, verse 10, and the world which existed through him, yet the world did not recognize him. He came to his own, yet his own folk did not welcome. So the Jewish people that he came to, he's the Jewish Messiah. And the Jewish brethren, the people of Israel, rejected him, but not all, because his disciples were obviously Jewish. Verse 12, on those who had accepted him, however, he has conferred the right of being children of God, that is, on those who believe in his name. Now, again, what am I doing? I'm reading from a Moffatt translation that Shabir alluded to. So I'm even showing, even if that word divine in John 1:1 was still to be credible, which it can be in essence, but it doesn't take away the doctrine or the teaching that Jesus is by definitive terms and emphatically taught to be God from all eternity, who is with the Father of the same essence. It doesn't take that away. You keep reading here, and it affirms the context always rules. Look at verse 14. I'm going to jump ahead here. So the Logos became flesh and tarried among us. We have seen his glory, glory such as the Son enjoys from his Father, seen it to the full of grace and reality. John testified this, again, John the Baptist, with the cry, this was he whom I said, my successor has taken precedence of me, for he preceded me. In other translations, talk about he existed before me. He preceded means he existed before me. Again, pointing to his pre-existence before taking on flesh. So when you keep reading here, this is so clear. When you're reading through the Gospel of John, it is abundantly clear that Jesus was sent from God over 40 times in the Gospel of John alone. Does it talk about Jesus being in the heavenly realm, being with the Father, sent into the world of which he created? He was sent into this world, and he talks about repetitively going back to be with the Father. In fact, this is what Jesus says in John 17, verse 5. Father, glorify me together with you with the glory which I had with you before the world was. Jesus claiming he was with the Father before creation. Before creation. So yes, Shabir Ally, you are wrong. The whole Gospel of John is pointing emphatically clear to the deity of Jesus Christ. John 10:30, Jesus said, I and my Father are one. Literally in the Greek, we are one. We are together in this. Jesus over and over, even John chapter 8, when talking to the Jewish people, and the Jewish people were challenging him in John chapter 8, they say to him, who are you? Are you greater than the prophets? Verse 50, are you greater than Abraham? Are you greater than prophets? Who do you claim to be? And you keep on reading. It says, Abraham rejoiced to see my day, Jesus said, and he saw it and glad. And they were like, wait a minute, Jesus, you're not even yet 50, dude. How could you say you've seen Abraham? And Jesus responds back, before Abraham was born, I am. And the context is so clear. Verse 59, they picked up stones wanting to stone him. Why? Because they believed in their ears he just blasphemed. Because a direct reference from Leviticus 24:16 says, those who would blaspheme the name of the Lord are to be stoned to death. So in their ears, they just heard Jesus claiming the name of Yahweh from the Old Testament. So, and when did Abraham see Jesus? There are numerous places in the Old Testament. Genesis 17, Genesis 18, and other places where the Lord, Genesis 22, where the Lord Yahweh appeared to Abraham. Many times. So, yes, Jesus pre-existed. The Bible teaches that he is the source of all creation. He was with the Father before all things. And yes, John 1:1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God.